Well, good morning. Hey, this is Kels Goodman here in Utah, and I'm joined by Mark Burris, who is on the other side of the galaxy, right over here. But I can simply touch him. He's so close,
Mm,
yet so far. How you doing this morning,
mm.
Mark?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Great, exciting. It's 50 degrees outside, and the snow is gone, but we'll probably get more snow, of course. But no, doing great. Excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today. And but before we start another exciting episode of Hidden in the Heartland podcast, we wanted to talk about a giveaway that we're going to do. Another giveaway from the Camora Land Press right here. And Mark, why don't you tell us about the giveaway? What do you got there, brother?
Sure. So for our giveaway, it is
Dun
a
dun dun
replica of the
dun.
Decalogue stone.
It's the actual
So
Decalogue stone. Oh, it's only a replica. That's okay.
yeah, it's only a replica.
So only a replica with the Ten
So these have
Commandments.
not, the only way to get a replica, as far as I know right now, is to actually go to the Hummercast Museum,
Yeah.
um, in Ohio. Yeah. So that's really the only way to do that right now. These Decalogue stones we had made I think about 8 years ago. So we have a few left. So you'll get the stone, a replica of the stone box that it came in, and also the keystone. So
Oh,
for those that
awesome.
are familiar with the Heartland model, this is one of those artifacts that's kind of like call it a smoking gun. Um, if you want to be entered into our contest to win the Decalogue stone, you need to like, comment, and share either on Facebook or on YouTube. So like, comment, and share.
That's
And
right.
these are quite valuable. It's about $100 value. So like like, comment, and share. They're
Yeah,
they're pretty
it's a
awesome.
it's a great piece. It's one of my favorite pieces. I have one right up here. You
Yeah.
can see right there. And yeah, it comes in that cool cover that it came in when they found it. And then of course the keystone, which is the pointy shaped one, and they all have black Hebrew written all over.
Yeah.
And so, which is pretty
And this
exciting.
was like this took a lot to produce these.
Yeah.
So and these are significantly nicer than the ones that you buy at the Hummer House.
Yeah.
So like these ones are nice and solid. The ones at Hummer House are very they're kind of made out of a, I don't know, like a clayish ceramic. So
Yeah.
these are just really good. They all the Hebrew is correct
Yeah.
compared to the original. So comment, like, and share.
Yep.
We'd love to get this to you. We want to get a lot of views. We want to get a lot of people seeing our material. This is a really cool episode that we're going to be presenting today. A lot of the information was things I didn't know, but definite um, evidence. It's
Yep.
pointing in the direction that we're looking for. So
That's right, Mark. You bet. Well, thanks, man. That's going to be awesome. So you've got to like, comment, and share, and if we're going to take your names down over the next few days when this video is posted, and between here and YouTube, okay, Facebook and YouTube. That we're actually this is YouTube, but if you're also on Facebook, which is where we're at as well, we'll write all the names down, put them in a magic box, or actually we'll put it in this box next week or next time we meet, and we'll pick a name out, and that's who's going to win. So remember to stay tuned on that for the following
we're not
episode.
we're not going to give a time frame for when we're
Yeah,
gonna like stop. So
yeah,
make sure you comment, like, and share early because if we get a ton of names, it might only be up for a week.
yeah. That's right.
So make sure you do it early. Make sure you let other people know because this is going to be one of those cool things that you can have in your house to show off to people.
That's right.
It's definitely a conversation piece. People say, "Oh, what's that thing?"
It's a great conversation. I actually have two of them, and one of them's upstairs in our front room, and where we have a display. And when people walk in and out of our house, every once in a while, there's a good percentage of them that want to see that stone and go, "Wow, what is that?" And boom, conversation starts, and it's awesome. So, hey, thank you to the Comorland Press, i.e., Mark Burris, for that giveaway, and that's exciting. So let's dive into this discussion, shall we? This is a discussion that is new to me, and both me and Mark, we both were like, "What?" And so this is kind of fascinating, and it'll probably be new to you. And so let me go ahead and kick on the screen here, my little what do you call it? There we go. We're gonna go
Anytime we can talk about Michigan, I think is a fun conversation because there's just so
Michigan.
much in that area. Yeah.
It is. It is just filled, man. And it's, some people call it the oven mitt of the East. And because it does look like an oven mitt, but it also looks like an oven mitt where somebody's been painting the wall and there's a little leftover there. And so
Reaching up to
reaching up,
Canada, it's
reaching up to
so nice
Canada
and
and
hot.
sharing its lake love. So, but no, we love Michigan. I love going up there. We'll probably go again in October. I think we're going to go up to the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society conference they have every year. And today's information is actually coming straight from this last conference in last October. And so that's why some of this is new. And so this will be kind of fun to see what we find. So here's Michigan. Okay. So Michigan, probably its main thing that really gives it a good connection, possible connection to the old world is its copper. So Michigan is full of many different things. In fact, it's kind of cut off on the top of this image. If you can see an image that I have on here, on the top, I accidentally cut off Isle Royal. And Isle Royal is where probably a huge I can't even tell you the percentage. Some people will say 80%, whatever. They say some of the best copper is from that area. And if you go to some of these areas on the peninsula, there's actually you'll see copper everywhere. It's these stores selling copper made things. And so copper seemed to be a real big industry for its time. And there's a lot of theories. If you zoom this map even further back, you'll be able to see the St. Lawrence River and how it connects to the sea, and how people could have come from the sea to the St. Lawrence River and down to this place to get copper. The copper was a lot of researchers will agree that people long before Columbus came here for the copper, because you'll find the same kind of copper spread out everywhere. You'll
All
find it
around the world. Yeah.
all around the world. And
So like I I forget the percentage, but it's like 97% copper and like 2% silver.
mhm,
So they have whole groups of people that can research exactly where a metal comes from.
yeah,
And they found some of this Michigan copper in England. So they're showing that there was some type of trade. Yeah, we will, buddy. There was trade happening anciently.
yeah,
Copper is one of those interesting materials because it's mentioned a lot in the Book of Mormon.
correct.
When you start paying attention to to different things, like when you're looking at material, or for instance, if you're reading the Book of Mormon and you're just reading about when it talks about this land, um, but copper is mentioned over and over and over again, and it actually mentions how they would mine it. And it seems like Michigan, where this float copper is, they were mining it the same way that they did in the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
No, that's very true. In fact, I mean, you kind of want to, that's something to think about. is in when you read about cultures of the past, you read a lot of cultures have always garnered a certain industry that made them what they were, whatever powerful people they ended up being. Was a certain, like some had salt and some had gold and some built ships or whatever, certain groups of people became expert at certain things. And you're right, Mark. There's a lot of mention of the people, so you kind of ask the question, what was the industry of the Nephites? What was their industry? What was it that they had that kept them alive? We only read about the wars, and then we read about the spiritual things, and we read about the um, secret combinations, but we don't really read about the day to day. We don't really read about the things that would go on when there wasn't, turmoil. You read sometimes that goes glossed really quick. And I know when there were those few moments where they talked about things were peaceful, things were good. They planted fields. They had one of the big things is they produced copper. Copper was
Mhm.
one of those things on their list of things. And that's why I can't help but to think there being some kind of connection because of the copper that came out of Michigan to the
And
possible industry that fed the Nephite people, that kept them
and
alive.
the artifacts that, like, if you ever get a chance to see some of these copper artifacts, they're really amazing. You have
Yeah.
anything from arrowheads to knives to copper tablets with writing on them. So it
Yep.
seems like they were able to use copper for almost anything. I mean, Kells did an episode on the Michigan tablets, and a lot of those artifacts were tied together with copper.
Hmm.
Um, so they were able to, that was kind of the material that they used for
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
And whether
So,
and whether the Michigan relics are fake or not, whether they were prefabbed or whether they were real, I personally believe that it's a mix of both. I believe there were some that were faked and forged because there were ones that were real that were coming out. Some people probably
yeah.
were like, "Hey, I got one over here," and they made one, and who knows? We don't know. That's not important in this discussion. What's important in this discussion is this land known as Michigan. And
Mhm.
and and if you can also see, here's Michigan, just south of Michigan is Ohio, which is filled with the mounds and the artifacts within Ohio. And then
Mhm.
just east of there is the Hill Cumorah. And so,
And that's also an area that's considered the plains of the Nephites, which we're gonna
that's
have an
right.
episode on later. So
That's
there's a lot of stuff going on. The St. Lawrence River. There's mention, in some historical documents talking about land desolation,
yeah.
and what that was. So we can Michigan is a good candidate for a place that both perhaps the Nephites were and the Jaredites.
Yeah.
And in some of the copper mines, they've actually done tests on the wood that held up the mine, and some of them date to Nephite time period, and some of them date to Jaredite time period. So
Wow.
it's a place where copper's been mined for a really, really long time. There's a lot of copper there. There still is a lot of copper. Um, they even went in during World War II and mined a lot of the copper that they used to produce bullets. So it seems like Michigan's has been the place where we've been getting copper for ages.
That's right. Yeah. So it's definitely a hotbed. Michigan's also always had a lot of stories of Viking and Norse and Celts presence, that make its way through the St. Lawrence and coming down to this possible area where a lot of things have been taken from. And so the point in all in this little opening is just the fact that Michigan really, I think, is undervalued as far as being able to be looked at as some kind of candidate for possible Book of Mormon. I really think there's not a lot of people haven't really done, in my opinion, enough research to see whether there is a connection there. So what we want to do is show you a little bit of something today. And some of this is actually going to be new. I'm going to go ahead and bump forward here. Now you see a little dot on the bottom that I just created. That's in a town called Jackson. And it's in this area where there's a little bit of it's a high concentration of some artifacts and also garden beds, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. It's a garden, but I'm going to go into the artifact after I
And
cough.
the artifacts that we're speaking of, like, make sure you keep on watching this episode, because a lot of times people, when they hear artifact in Michigan, they go, "Oh, well, you're talking about the tablets and whatever. I don't want
Yeah,
to hear that." These are different artifacts
yeah. This
that
is
we're
a
going to be
different.
speaking of. We're also going to be talking about the evidence of a large civilization living in Michigan. It's just
Yeah,
evidence of what was needed to um feed a large civilization. So
that's right. So, okay. So this is Lon Krieger. So what I'm doing right now is the presentation I'm giving you today is strictly probably 90% of it, 80, 90% of it is from Lon Krieger. So bless Lon Krieger for letting us use this. Actually, at this moment, we don't really have permission to use it. We hope we have it before we air this. But I've seen several of his presentations. I've met him once, and he's a great guy. He used to be a military man, I think, and so he's from Michigan. He lives in Michigan, and I think I've met him once, but he speaks at the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society, and that's where this presentation is coming from. So Lon is actually, he's showing you right here this Jackson Man headstone. And the question is, what is this Jackson Man headstone? And I searched everywhere, and I've only been able to find it on this video that I
mhm.
obtained from the Ancient Artifact Preservation Society. And
This
it's
is one of those rare artifacts that has provenance. Like, it's been with the same people ever since it was found, right? So
correct.
it's been in the same family ever since, what was it, the 1870s, that they were digging a basement and
Yeah,
they
and
found it.
that's what this is right here. That's right. Kim Roos is who. Now Kim came out for a few minutes, and she had, you can see she has the head right there. And so
Yeah.
she had the artifact with her, and has it there. And here's a close up of it, as you've been seeing here. This goofy face with the long nose and these teeth. And I don't mean to, I'm not bashing his looks, obviously, because I'm sure, there's a meaning to it, um, but that's him. And so here's the background on it. This was found in Jackson, Michigan. This artifact. It was found back in 1871 by Kim Roos's great grandparents, known as grandfather known as William Johnson. That's the only name I was able to get. And it's an artifact you're right. It's always been in the family. And it was mostly found when they were excavating their house. So when they were digging the basement to their house in 1871, this artifact came up. And the thing that's important is to remember that that's how most of these artifacts are found. They're found just like that,
Mhm.
where they're digging to put in something, and then, oh my goodness, there it is. In fact, that's when you see the first episode of Hidden in the Heartland, and you see us talking about, oh, what was it, Dixon Mounds, and the good archaeologist there pulled out a map of Illinois, and he goes into where all the dots, the thousands of dots on this map where artifacts were found, and his joke was, where is there a place where we haven't found artifacts? This is Illinois.
Yeah.
And it was mostly in a place where there was a highway, where there was a house built. It was always something you kind of fell upon. And so
Yeah.
that's what's happened here. And
The interesting thing about this head too is it's like they kept it in the family. It wasn't something that was turned into a curiosity. Like they weren't charging people to see it. They kept it in their house.
yeah,
They kept it in their barn. It was something that the family they just had. It wasn't, you know, it's like, oh, we found out when we dug up the basement. We show friends when they come over, but it wasn't ever made into a like a circus sideshow like some artifacts had
yeah.
been.
Well, and Kim here, with all respect to Kim, she doesn't know. She's probably shocked that she's on this video if she ever sees this. But so bless her heart, she didn't know anything really about it. She talked about how they've just had it for years in the family, and she'd pull it out for parties. And, it was just something where it was just kind of a fun thing that she found, not realizing until much later that this is important, that it could be
Yeah,
something very, very interesting. And luckily she met Lon and was able to bring it to the Ancient Artifact
yeah.
Preservation Society.
She even mentioned that the grandkids colored its mouth red.
Yeah,
Like you can see the crayon they used. Like
yeah,
it was just something that was common in the family, you
yeah,
know, and it even took abuse by family members. But
that's right. And who knows what other parts may have come with it, but this is all we know. This is all that they have. But and it's and she took it to the Michigan State. Okay. So here's some sides to it. Uh and hey, we're joined by Mark's little buddy. How you doing, buddy? So he's with us.
hi. You want to say hi?
Hello.
Say hi.
So anyway, we are she took it to Michigan State, and the Michigan State people actually told her that it was not Native American, but that they also said it was not a hoax. And so, which was a big plus to actually get that from official archaeologists to show us that.
What do you think
And
about
but
that?
then Michigan State wanted to keep it, and Michigan State were wanted to, oh, let's take it off your hands, and we'll do
They're really
research.
good
And
at making sure that people have access to artifacts and things.
yeah,
So
and
yeah,
she chose against it. So she said, "Nah, I'll just keep it." And so, which was probably, I don't know, for a lot of people, it's probably smarter that she did it that way. And so, anyway, here's the stone heads. Here's some stats on the head, and the head is was 18 pounds. Can you believe that? This thing is only like this big, like the size of anybody's head, but it is 18 pounds. It's a 9 inches tall, has a circumference of 26 inches, and has a facial width of 7 or 8 inches. So this thing is thick. This thing is real heavy, um, you know, con construct to it.
they also I think Michigan State also said it might have been looked like it might have been something bigger, might have
Yeah,
been part of a statue. So they kind of indicated that it might just be more than a head, but that at the time that's all that was found.
yeah.
So
So and I continue with Lon's kind of presentation here. I pretty much just cut it out of his video here and brought it on. Yeah, it's supposedly made by limestone, or it's supposedly, they know, obviously it's right in front of them. It's made carved in limestone, and it's got this kind of devilish, toothy stare about it, is how it was sort of described, where the stone was crafted, and it looks like either a warrior or a deity or a warning marker, something. And I thought maybe it's a scarecrow. Who knows? I don't know. Something to to scare people away. Um, was it a hero head? Was it a burial marker? Or is it just a simple one-off artifact that somebody made? And who really knows? We'll never know. So that's just sort of their conclusion is we don't know. And here's some other sides to this head. It's got ears that are kind of different. There's a theory that there's two artists that put this together, kind of like what David Lindsley was saying when he was talking about the Michigan box, how he felt like that there were separate artists that carved one side and another did another side. And so this is one where the ears are really different on each one, but you get kind of some view of it in this picture. And then here's some similar, and this is where Lon Krieger kind of put a call out, and we could put the same call out to each of you to as part of this discussion as an audience. What can you? Is there any that are similar? And the similar ones that Lon found were this one in Turkey in the middle that looks like it has funky dentistry with it, that they say was 11,000 years old, and then one in Israel, which is 9,000 years old, with teeth. But as far as it being anything like it, it's not. There's almost nothing like it, and that's what makes it really fascinating. Is that there's nothing like it. The hair, they say the hair on the top looks kind of like could be almost a Greek or a Roman kind of hairstyle to it, with its straight, kind of cut on the top. But who knows? It's a big question mark. And the goal is to find something similar so they can kind of that's in some ways that's kind of how you date things, is you find something that's part of a period that has a certain date confirmation, and then you give a likeness to it and you say, oh, okay, that could be figure it out. And
like what culture made it as well, if you can
yeah,
find something that's similar, you can kind of say, well, it's probably from this culture.
yeah.
So
So that's kind of fascinating, and it was found right there in downtown Jackson, Michigan. And
mhm.
but here's what's interesting. And we're going to jump forward, and then these are some of the features that they say that were in it: a long nose, well-defined hairline. That's where they say it could easily look like some kind of Roman hairstyle, and then the strange variance in ears. That's why they theorize it could have been two sculptors. And but let's go back to our map. So this is where it was found in Michigan. And this, what's interesting is Lon brought up, and Lon has done a lot of research in this topic. So I'm going to pull some more research from Lon, but then I found others, and it's about the garden beds. Now, I'm literally going to shift gears, and we're going to talk about topic number 2, and that is the ancient garden beds of Michigan. But they were found in a nearby. This head was found near where all the gardens are. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So why they were near it, who knows? That's just fascinating. But that there could be a correlation there between these gardens. And so okay, so I'm going to jump forward to this crazy cat right here, Henry Schoolcraft. So Henry Schoolcraft, when for those of you who do your own research, and I highly recommend that you do your own research, this is one guy that you'll want to do a lot of study from, is Henry Schoolcraft. In fact, I think they named a county in Michigan, Schoolcraft County, up in the peninsula. And Henry Schoolcraft, he lived from 1793 to 1864. So most of his study is that early 1800s period where a lot of stuff was still untouched. And he wrote this book called The Archives of Aboriginal Knowledge. So that's an amazing title. Say that 10 times real fast. And he had volumes 1 through 6 that, and a lot of his
Oh
discussion
my
about the
goodness.
garden beds are within this book. And so if you can find this writing somewhere, this would actually be very valuable to what you learn. This is similar to reading Davis and Squire and Davis's content, kind of that same era. In fact, a lot of Squire and Davis's content will come from Henry Schoolcraft. So they obviously share with one another. But Henry Schoolcraft
It
was there.
it's interesting to me how much was found early on,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden it was like we stopped looking,
Yeah.
and now no one pays attention to these old books. So
Yeah. That's true. We think that sometimes, and this is where it's a conundrum and maybe even worth a discussion is are older books more accurate than the newer books? Because I feel like personally, my feeling is if you're reading an older book, you're getting a closer resemblance to what happened, what it was, than reading some newer one that refashions the history, that
yeah,
changes, the story. And I understand that older books probably have a tendency to maybe hide a certain kind of discussion or talk, but then the older books are closer, but the newer books have a tendency to change the storylines. And if stuff, the garden beds are actually a perfect example because you can't even hardly see a garden bed anymore today because it's filled with houses or with development. But back then, whatever it was, you can see. And I'm going to give you an example here. These are examples that are images that some were drawn, I think, by Schoolcraft, some were drawn by other people. Not all of them, but Schoolcraft kind of identified most of them, and he identified about 14 different ways that the gardens beds were built. And I've got a document I'm going to read here. Now, this is a document called Ancient Garden Beds of Michigan by Bella Hubbard. And this was written on February 7th, 1877. And so here's what Bella says. Bella says a class of works of the mound builders exists in Michigan of unknown age and origin, which have received the name garden beds. And he goes on and talks about people who've commented on the garden beds as early as 1748 was their comments about the archaeological find of these garden beds. So they're already old by the mid to late 1700s. But then he went and quoted Schoolcraft. Okay, so Schoolcraft took the time to actually go in and record these types of garden beds. So this is what he said. He says, Schoolcraft was the first to give to the world any accurate and systematic account of these furrows, is what he called them. Indeed, he is the only author of note, and remember, this is 1877, who honors this interesting class of the works of the mound builders with more than the most mention. Observations were made by him as early as 1827. He gives figures of two kinds of beds and records the fact that, quote from him, the garden beds and not the mounds form the most prominent and by far most striking and characteristic antiquarian movements of this district of country. Okay, so he's talking about how we're focused on the mounds, but we're forgetting these garden beds, which are also very distinct. I'm going to go to the
these
next
were
image.
these were huge, right?
Yeah.
They're like almost modern farms, not just like a cottage garden, right?
Yeah. And look at the
From
look
what
at the
I
fashion
understand.
in them. Look at how they're built. Isn't that wild? I mean, they're really, these are actual drawings, and Schoolcraft came up with about 14 different geometrical types of farms.
And when you're in an airplane, the circular one looks exactly like what they do with farms now.
Yeah.
Like some of these patterns are things that we do, and it's interesting to me because
Yeah. They're
interesting to me because it's one of those things that the people that are say that the Book of Mormon is a hoax, is they say, well, there isn't evidence of, at least in North America, there isn't really evidence of this type of agriculture, like is mentioned in the Book of Mormon,
yeah.
that the Native Americans were doing a lot of hunting and gathering or small planting, but nothing like this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, look at those. So Bella, this is the last I'm going to read here from 1877 from Bella Hubbard. So-called garden beds were found in the valleys of the St. Joseph and Grand Rivers, where they occupied the most fertile of the prairie land and bur oak plains, principally in the counties of St. Joseph, Cass, and Kalamazoo. Okay, so there's those are some of the locale of these garden beds. I know that Lon Krieger goes on to quote some other people. There's another person who I found kind of at the last minute that maybe down the road we can find more content from him. And it was a gentleman named Dr. David Overstreet, who does a lot of, it's an archaeologist out of Wisconsin who has done a lot of research in Wisconsin and into Michigan, where he's been able to find hundreds of these garden beds. And he's been able to map out a number of them. Obviously, most of them are all rolled over. Most of them are all, but the remnants of those garden beds still exist, and they say that some of them are as far back as at least 400 AD, if not older. So we're kind of dipping into the Nephite time frame when it comes to a lot of these garden beds. And that these people who ran these gardens pretty much fed, the copper culture, of Michigan. So while the guys are mining copper and doing the work of copper, there's also the group of industry that are farming that were established. And when we think of
didn't
these, people
didn't
being,
Wayne May say something like it took 10,000 men? Like they actually measured the amount of copper that's been taken out of there
oh
from
yeah, yeah,
like ancient, like it was literally thousands of men that were mining copper. And to be able to have that kind of a culture, um you had to have farming that could support that.
yeah,
Without the farming, they would have everybody would have had to have a you know to hunt or to gather or to have their own little farm to grow, but they wouldn't have had time to mine that kind of
yeah,
copper.
yeah. That's right. So you got to have different people, different groups doing different things, and that was sort of what Lon Krieger walked away from, and that was the idea that the um, that the people who ran these farms also, you know, fed the copper culture, and you know, and kept the industry going. So anyway, these are just some interesting things I think that were interesting to find. Um, and I hope that you guys got a little something today out of our podcast. That head is definitely brand new, and I have never seen it anywhere else, and so it's kind of exciting. I don't know what um, the lady, I forgot her name. I feel bad, but uh, that what she's going to do with the head, what the plan is, Kim Roos. Where I hope that it's somewhere for all of us to see, and I hope research continues on it. And honestly, if any of you have ever seen a head like that, uh, let us know. Maybe we'll pass it on to Lon and let him know that that we're talking about it. That it's definitely a point of discussion. So
Or if anybody knows anything about the farming like that,
Yep.
that's pretty compelling. I think that we tend to want to focus on temples and huge structures and things like that, but really it, the bedrock of culture and civilization, you know, the are those garden beds.
That's right.
So pretty
Yeah.
pretty interesting stuff.
And it shows you that like you said earlier, it shows you that it's not a roaming group. It's people who stayed there for many years and probably fought over it. Who knows? But we know that it existed and it's there and there's evidence of it. So anyway, well, thank you for joining with us on another episode of Hidden in the Heartland podcast. This is Kels and Mark. We're just going to sign out and we'll see you again soon. Don't forget to like and share, subscribe to this channel and also to
Comment.
our Facebook page for the Decalogue Stone giveaway from Camorra Land Press. And we will be excited to see you again next time on Hidden in the Heartland.